All right, next up, I want to introduce Drew LaMar. Drew is an assistant professor in the Department of Biology at the College of William and Mary, and he's here today to talk to us about his project QUBES, QUBES Hub, which is a community supporting teaching and learning in quantitative biology.
So I want to say thank you to Mike for inviting me to give a talk here, and to all of the HUBzero team and everybody. I wanted to talk about QUBES, which stands for Quantitative Undergraduate Biology Education and Synthesis. And it's something that has been around for about 2 years now. Okay, let me speak briefly about that. These are all the PIs. This is a 3-institution collaborative proposal. So there's a lot of people involved with this, and I want to give them thanks as well. Okay, so around 2006, a bunch of people came together and decided that there needed to be some changes to the way in which undergraduate biology education was done. These players ended up being, in particular, NSF and AAAS, but HHMI as well as NIH also played a part in this. And they came out with a very long report, about 80 pages long, in 2011, all about a call to action to make changes to the way that undergraduate education is taught. And many of things that they said kind of came around these 3 pillars of science, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard about. 3 pillars being theory and modeling on the first hand, experimentation and statistics on the second pillar, and simulation and computation on the third. Okay? And most recently, via a report in the 4th paradigm, data-intensive scientific discovery, big data is arguably a 4th pillar of science. Okay? And in many cases, this report highlights all 4 of these pillars and the importance of them. And if you can notice that every single one of these has some level of quantitative idea to it. And I include computation and algorithmic thinking in that in quantitation as well. So here's what they said for what they thought were the core competencies and disciplinary practices for undergraduate biology education. The ability to apply the process of science. So biology is evidence-based and grounded in the formal practices of observation, experimentation, and hypothesis testing. Ability to use quantitative reasoning. Biology relies on applications of quantitative analysis and mathematical reasoning. Ability to use modeling and simulation. Biology focuses on the study of complex systems. Ability to tap into the interdisciplinary nature of science. Biology is an interdisciplinary science. Ability to communicate and collaborate with other disciplines. Biology is a collaborative scientific discipline. And the ability to understand the relationship between science and society. Okay? And you notice I highlighted these 2 right here, because those are the ones that include heavily the idea and the importance of quantitative reasoning. In this report, near the end, they had an entire 2 pages devoted to a virtual community of biologists. Okay? You see where this is going. And this one particular quote I found interesting. It said, "This resource would utilize the strengths of Web 2.0, creating a new, high-quality interface for undergraduate biology educators. Such a site would search like Google, recommend like Amazon, vet like Consumer Reports, and annotate like Wikipedia. Done well, this interface would provide a core of information, tools, and networks for undergraduate biology educators." This is back in 2011. So I think they were like calling on HUBzero to come into the picture. So the first grant that we got was January 15th, 2014. It was a year-long grant. It was a RCN UBE grant, Research Collaboration Network grant. Kind of a small seed grant, $50,000, to begin the whole process of trying to build a community of educators and people to come together to tackle this issue. And it started at a workshop called Sums for Bio. And it had 2 flavors. The one main flavor was the QUBES Consortium. It's a coordination network. So the idea was to find societies and programs that were all trying to accomplish the same thing of increasing quantitative education in biology, and get them all in one umbrella and have them sort of helping each other out. So that's what the consortium was. So we got a lot of people on board, people that are interested in this kind of a thing. And of course, then there's the hub aspect of it. So creating a virtual community, a place where the people could go, educators could go, and students could go to help this, this call to action that was put forth. So the idea of QUBES Hub was, okay, there are lots and lots of repositories that are already out there for educational resources. Okay? Many, many of them. Not even just educational resources, but data repositories, software repositories, model repositories, just all over the web. So the idea was to try to be sort of a central clearinghouse, a central place where a lot of this stuff can be pulled in, can be commented on, and vetted. And really, we want it to be a collaboration workspace, a sandbox, where you start off with nothing, and you collaborate with others, and you can build these amazing structures. So it really can go from idea to product. And then the idea was once these either teaching materials or whatever it is you're creating are complete, they can be vetted back out to the community. Maybe they can be peer reviewed, things like that. So when we started running out of funding and we wanted to go further, we ended up getting involved with even more people and submitted a proposal to the IU's Ideas Lab. Okay? So we ended up getting about $2.9 million. It's a 5-year grant to take what we started off with this incubator grant and take it further. So a bit about the IU's Ideas Lab. I'm not sure if any of you have been to an NSF Ideas Lab before, but this is what a portion of what they did looks like. Just boards and boards and boards of Post-it notes and just amazing, like it's the free-flowing ideas, just throw it on the board. It looks like a complete chaos, right? But out of this Ideas Lab came a lot of the seeds that turned into the grant that we got funded. Here are some of the players that were there in pictures from the Ideas Lab. This is Tom Gower. He's at NC State. This is Jeremy Wojciak. He's at Radford University. This is, I'm blanking on it, Lou Gross, who is on our advisory board. See, they're having a very good time. And this is one of the things that was posted on the wall there. They wanted a bioinformation hub, a web and a mobile device-based resource, user-friendly to undergraduates, one-stop shop, essentially, to access resources. And they wanted it to do everything: big data, image analysis, small data statistics, DNA sequencing, the whole thing, right? Kind of a tall task at hand. Oh, and then also as well, they wanted to be powerful computing for all. So they really wanted to be equitable, right? And I think part of that, one of the things that we're really aiming at and thinking about is not just having this be for 4-year institutions, but also for 2-year institutions. How can we bring in community colleges and the teaching that goes on in those institutions as well? So it expanded to this from just the consortium and the hub, and I'll speak briefly about each one of these as well. So there's the QUBES metrics, systems for defining and tracking teaching scholarship. This is a very risky one. But in the Vision and Change, they say an advocate for increased status, recognition, and rewards for innovative in teaching, student success, and other educational outcomes. So in many institutions, everyone would say, well, what are the 3 components of your job? And they would say research, teaching, and service. And those are not equally weighted. In many cases, teaching is sort of an afterthought. And so if you really want this call to action, if you really want to have change happen at the undergraduate level in terms of the teaching of undergraduate students, how do you get teaching to become a much more important and recognized aspect of the job? So that's something that we're trying to look at. Very high risk, because we're talking about moving mountains here. but we're up for the challenge. And then there's one of our biggest focuses is on mentoring networks. So we have this call to action to change undergraduate education in biology. Well, you need to make sure you have some professional development around. So we have mentoring networks, which is essentially what we're using the hub to make it virtual. Okay, nothing can replace physical interaction. So that the gold standard is meet in person at a conference, have a meeting, and then go off and then meet virtually after that during your semester while you're trying to implement something. That's the idea, so that you can help each other throughout the process. So again, provide teaching support and training for all faculty, but especially postdoctoral fellows and early career faculty who are in their formative years as teachers. Those are the ones that aren't old and crotchety and set in their ways, so to speak, like myself. Okay? So try to go after the ones that are just starting and to get it going early. So that's how the whole big picture of what QUBES is about. Here's a little snapshot of the hub, and it's called QUBESHub.org, and I'm going to speak briefly about some things hub-related. So the vision, main resource types. We want it to be a place where models can exist. Okay? There exist many existing mathematical model databases and repositories out there, but the vision that we would have is, yeah, it's great, have these places where models are, where students can go to learn about mathematical modeling, but wouldn't it be great if they could click on a button and it immediately begins simulating and playing with it and messing around with parameters. So that's the vision with that. Again, there are a lot of existing repositories for model databases, but with the HUBzero framework and with tools, it becomes much more powerful. Also house some data, in particular data that's really good for an educational context. So, and of course allowing for multiple formats. But again, with the HUBzero framework, you allow for, wouldn't it be great if you click on a data set and boom, all of a sudden you have statistics you can do on it, visualizations, analysis immediately. And I'll show you a video of that in a second of what the Hub right now is doing with that stuff. And then of course the software, which the HUBzero already has a lot built in terms of the tools. Now I will say that I always love this cartoon. Every single model type, data type, software type, there's just standards all over the place. So this is an XKCD cartoon about standards. 4 competing standards, you need to develop one universal standard, and of course what ends up happening is you end up with 15 competing standards. So, but we're not trying to create the golden standard, the one way to do things. We're trying to make sure that if a teacher or an educator has their tool of choice, their program that they love, we want to be able to support that on the Hub, and so that they can use it with their students in their classroom. And then general teaching and learning material, syllabi, lecture notes, videos, courses, and then seminars and workshops. So some example uses. Teaching gate. So there's a research gate. So we were thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was something like a teaching gate? And this is the cheesiest quote of the day. Today's research is tomorrow's education. So what we try to do is we think, okay, look, today's research may be next decade's education. There can be a time lag here that we're trying to reduce. Okay? We're trying to bring research into the educational process. We're trying to lower the barriers to students to be able to do data analysis, to do a lot of the modern biology that's happening right now. Bioinformatics, big data stuff. How can we get that into the classroom where you can have 300 freshmen even doing this stuff in class, okay, in a more active learning environment? There's simulators designed for in-class use. So this is one of the examples I wanted to show. Make sure I have time, a little bit of time. So one of the simulators that we use that is great for modeling is called NetLogo. So anybody have heard of NetLogo or agent-based modeling? Yeah. So it's really a fun way to introduce students to the modeling idea. And this is running in the Hub. And this particular example is a flocking bird example. So you can click Setup, and it creates agents, which are birds. And then it has rules on how they interact. And you click Go, and then you can visualize them flocking. Right? And what's great about this is that this has a code tab right here. They can immediately go to the code tab, and they can actually see. And it's sort of, if you're not a programmer, it's an intuitive language. If you are a programmer, it's a non-intuitive language. But they have their own special language for how you make these agents interact. But the point is to bring this into the classroom, to allow students to be able to play with this stuff. First at the level of buttons and sliders, changes parameters, what do you think will happen, making hypotheses, that kind of stuff. But then even further, looking at the code, how would you change the rules, how would that change the behavior? You can really get them involved in the scientific process. And again, it's removing those barriers is our goal. So, let me go back. The other one is interactive data for teaching data analysis. So here's an example. This is, someone mentioned R. Janet, you mentioned R. So one of the things that R has is something called R Shiny, which allows, it's kind of like Rapture, actually. What it allows you to do is easily create GUIs for the web. It actually creates a website. It's a web app that allows you to use all of the stats in R. So this is one called Radiant. It was put out by a business analytics person, and we sort of just took it and said, this is great, we want to use it for biology. But this is on the Hub. You can load in a data set. And I've kind of hacked it so that it opens up the upload, download thing automatically. You just pick a CSV file, and then it uploads it. And then it's immediately in there. And then immediately what the student can do is they can start viewing it in the table form. They can filter it. So in this case, there's a factor called, there's an experiment and an observational setup, and so they're choosing experimental. And then you can immediately do visualizations like histograms, or even viewing statistics. So you can go up and do, compare means. And one of the things that's nice about this, so this is doing a stat thing, and then you can plot the results. And then you can, something called journaling. You can grab the results, and it creates an R Markdown journal. So this is someone mentioned reproducibility. If you use what's called R Markdown, you can essentially annotate with text. So you can put in your own text, and then it just gives you a workflow of what you've done in terms of statistics and data and visualization right there. And then the students can, once they're finished doing whatever they're doing with the stats and the data analysis and the visualization, they can save it as an HTML, download to their computer, and then they can turn in this HTML to their instructor. And it looks exactly like their journal that they had done. So this is what we're trying to do, is to try to, again, lower those barriers. How can we get students doing visualization of data, management of data, and analysis of data as easily and quickly as possible? Okay, so almost finished. Again, we're envisioning a sandbox for curriculum development. And in particular, we want products that are open source, ever-changing, and version controlled. Okay? So our vision is that, and also we want built-in assessments of teaching materials. So imagine, for example, you have a teaching material that has an assessment piece. You can download it as an instructor, give it to your class, collect the data, upload it back up, and then you have these, you can have a better idea of how useful, how good is this particular teaching material in the classroom, right? But what we want is something that's easy to share. Okay, so one of the things that we worry about is attribution, and as part of the metrics part, in our mind, it would be great if someone runs across your teaching material, rather than downloading it and then all of a sudden it's off the grid, why don't you fork it, like in Git, right? It keeps it on the hub, right? And then they can modify it. Everything is attributed properly. It's versioned, right? And it's sort of an easy way to copy it, and you get that automatic. This has been forked this many times. This is, here's a teaching resource. There are 15 different forks. This person has modified it to work in a large classroom. This person uses it in a small classroom, so on and so forth. So I think for us, this sounds like a really great way to share open source teaching materials in a way that really can benefit people in the different use cases. Okay, finally I'll end up and say that the change that we're going for the mentoring networks is, again, having topics in each semester that address quantitative literacy and inter-courses, including more data analysis and simulation in labs. Redefine what constitutes success in an academic position by changing the culture around pedagogical research. And develop other metrics of success via hub use. For example, participation in mentor programs, submission of materials. We might want to get into the open badges thing, so everyone gets a little badge, gamification type thing. We're thinking about all kinds of ways in which we can get attribution and credit for people. Okay, and that's it. I just wanted to acknowledge all of my other co-PIs, all of our consortium partners, as well as HUBzero and Mike for introducing me to this whole HUBzero shebang and all the HUBzero crew. It's been a lot of fun. And of course, the funding partners. Thank you.